I used to be about 20 pounds heavier than I am right now. And I also used to think that being fat was only about your discipline. It's all 100% on you. Now, discipline is important. Good habits are important. But I had an experience that changed my outlook on this, and it has to do with mold. Now, I first need to say I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. I'm a contractor with an interest in health. So please do not relate to this advice as though it is medical. That would be really dumb because I am a contractor. For me, this story happens about a year ago. We bought a 1949 Cape Cod style house that's been flipped. You know, it's been repainted. It's got the new appliances, all gray LVP, all new carpet. You walk in, it smells like LVP paint and carpet. It doesn't have the old house smell. Now, after we move in for a while, I start to do a little bit of renovation work here and there. And I start getting to know my neighbors, and they start telling me horrific stories about my house. They tell me that the people who lived here before did not one thing to keep the house in order for 50 years. And that for years on end, the basement had 3 to 4 feet of water in it. And it's like, that tracks, because there's a water line on the stairs where the bottom is slightly rotted out. I was like, okay. Well, when I went to rip up the hardwood floors and redo the subfloor about a year ago, I cut into them, I pull out the LVP, and if you know anything about LVP, it is waterproof. You could also say it's water trapping, all right? If it won't let water in, it's not gonna let water out. Now, what do you think's happening to a layer of hardwood floors over a layer of subfloor that has been just flooded with moisture for years on end? It's wet in there. So when I pulled this LVP up, the whole house just filled with this musty, moldy smell. And then when I cut them up and broke them out, it just got even worse. It was so bad. And at this point in time, I didn't really know anything about mold and what it could do to your health. So I'm not even wearing a respirator. I'm just breaking this stuff up. The dust is getting sucked in by my HVAC system. Not smart things in hindsight. And following this stretch of time, I went into this strange slump where I had never experienced such low motivation. It was so hard to get myself out of bed in the morning. It was so hard to get myself to do work. I just couldn't come up with any motivation, no matter what. And then at nighttime, I would just crave sugar like a drug addict. I mean, I was craving it so hard. I could eat anything with sugar in it. It could be a candy or something that I didn't even like really, but if it had sugar, I could just eat it and eat it and eat it. And I did this for a while. And then I went to see a doctor who didn't know anything about mold and didn't lead me on to this, but it got me down the track of what's going on? Why are you in this slump right now? And finally, I eventually was led around to mold exposure. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I was very heavily exposed. It'd be hard to be exposed much more than I was for that stretch of time that immediately preceded me going into this slump. And what I learned was the effect that mold could have on the body and on the gut. And to understand how mold can affect your gut and affect the way you feel and the foods you eat, you need to understand the story of penicillin. Penicillin was our first antibiotic, and it saved millions and millions of lives. It was developed in the late 1920s, early 1930s by Alexander Fleming. And I'm gonna butcher the story a little bit. If you wanna know more of it, look it up. But essentially, he was studying Staphylococcus bacteria. And he left this bacteria petri dish in his window, and he went on vacation. And when he came back, some mold spores had blown through the window, and where they had landed in the petri dish, they had killed the bacteria around it. And this leads him down the rabbit hole of discovering penicillin, and we end up mass producing this stuff from big vats of mold. What you need to take away from this story is that mold can have the ability to kill off bacteria. Now, am I saying antibiotics are bad? Absolutely not. They're one of the greatest health inventions and lifesavers of all time. But some of the byproducts of mold also kill bacteria, and these byproducts are called mycotoxins. They are released from the mold around you, and then you end up breathing them in. They land in your mouth and everywhere else. You swallow them down into your gut, and what can happen is they will start killing off some of the good bacteria you need in your gut. And the balance in there gets thrown way out of whack, this can lead to fungal overgrowth in your gut. One of the most common ones I hear referred to is candida. And you know what this fungal overgrowth makes you crave? Sugar. Yes, the bacteria makeup, the fungal makeup of your gut can make you desire certain things and have a decent amount of control over your eating behavior. And I believe this fungal overgrowth was leading me down the path of these nighttime cravings and this overeating of sugar that I could hardly control. But this fungal overgrowth can start a spiral where 1, you're craving sugar. 2, they're disrupting the bacteria in your gut that help you produce the certain feel-good chemicals you need. For example, serotonin, which helps you feel happy, and dopamine, which helps you feel driven. And I'm telling you, in this period of my life, I had such low amounts of feeling happy and driven. It was not like me at all, how far I had sunk. And the more I ate the sugar, the more I fed these bacteria, the more they killed off my body's ability to make the dopamine and serotonin that I need. And so with my low dopamine, now I'm craving even more sugar because it gives a dopamine spike. And you can see this is just a downward spiral that leads you to worse and worse places. So I looked for some healthcare providers in my area that specialize in this. I didn't really find any. So I read a book that I'll link in the description by a naturopathic doctor. A lot of your naturopaths are actually the ones who know a lot about mold. It's not your traditional doctors. And from reading this book, I did a protocol where I got out of the moldy environment. 1, I stopped eating all the sugar. 2, 3, I started taking natural antifungal supplements. So this was like oil of oregano, olive leaf extract, and then 4, I started taking binders like activated charcoal to flush the stuff out of my system. Now I did this for about 6 weeks and I got way better. I started feeling way, way better than I did before. My drive came back. My sugar cravings were way lower. I still eat too much, but they're way lower. So if you're struggling with overeating, especially sugar, with low motivation, depression, it might be worth looking into, do you have mold in your environment? And there's a couple things that can lead to mold in your environment. 1 is water leaks. You know, if you've got a leak in the roof coming down from around a vent pipe or a chimney or something like that, it's going to lead to mold almost every time. Or 2, it's really just excessive humidity in the home. So like for me, I have an old home, 1949. There's not great waterproofing on the basement walls, probably poor drainage. So what I had to do is I had to get a dehumidifier that dumps straight into my sump pump pit. It runs 24/7. It never stops. And I brought that basement humidity level down from like in the 70 to 80% down to, I hold it at 40. And I do pay for it with my electric bill, but it's keeping that mold from growing down there. Some of the signs of mold are going to be a musty smell, known leaks. We walk down into the basement and there's condensation on the walls or on the floor. Crawl spaces are a horrible source of moisture usually, because unless you've got like a full plastic liner over the floor, just know the earth is moist. The earth is letting moisture up, and it's going to get on your joists. It's going to get on the bottom of your subfloor. It's going to work its way up into your house. It's going to lead to mold, which will eventually lead to rot. So you can get an inspector to come out and check your house over for mold. You need to be cautious of what they recommend, especially if they're the ones wanting to do the work, because that's a little bit of a conflict of interest. I don't think it always means you can't trust them, but it means you might want a second opinion. If you are going to deal with any mold, the EPA actually has recommendations that if it's like less than, I think, 10 square feet, don't quote me on this, look it up for yourself, that they say, okay, you can DIY it. But if it's more than that, they recommend hiring a professional. Obviously, that's your choice, but try not to breathe it in. Try not to get it on your skin. And if it is in your house, try to get it fixed or get out of there right away. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to see more of this type of content, please let me know what you think down in the comments.